Hi, Momentum Land. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Momentum Boost. I am, of course, your host, Adrienne Gold Davis, and I'm so happy that you're joining us today. So, as you can see, our platform looks a little bit different, and we know that the layout may take a little bit of getting used to, but we are confident that soon enough you're going to be able to find it easier to navigate. And if you're having any technical trouble, you just click that little hand icon on the lower right side chat box, and then choose the relevant icon that you need. You can also ask our guests a question anytime by clicking the question mark in the lower left-hand side of your chat box. And by the way, all the questions here are visible to everyone. So if you were hoping for anonymity or you wanted it to be private, just click the hand icon. In this episode, we're going to learn what it takes to truly ignite our entrepreneurial spirit and to blaze that trail to create positive change in our lives. I am so thrilled to introduce you to Michal Barkai Brody. She's a serial entrepreneur. She's an educator, a fighter for women's rights. She's an international motivation speaker, and she is the founder and former director of Alma's Pre-Army Academy for Women's Leadership. She's the co-founder of LEAP, and she's the co-founder of the Lioness Network of Changemakers. Michal is the winner of the Wizo Award for Groundbreaking Women and the Moskowitz Prize for Zionism. She's a Nachos machine, this one, and she was recently named as one of Israel's top 30 inspirational women by Lady Globes magazine. Welcome, Michal.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. And I think I'm the biggest fan of momentum in the world, even though I assume everybody in the crowd feels like it. And for some reason, I look really green here on this platform, but believe me, I'm not as green. You are more than welcome to come visit and see for yourselves. So I'm here, super excited to see you. The presentation is about to work. I assume in a second. Okay, here it is. So, hi, Momentum. What I would like to talk to you about today or tonight here in Israel is about lighting fires and blazing trails and how do we actually ignite our inner entrepreneur. So some of you maybe have met me here in Israel and have heard the entire story of how one day I woke up in my normal and nice and easy life in Tel Aviv after becoming an attorney to my mother's delight, and felt a fire burning within my Jewish neshama. And when I felt that fire burning, I understood that my mission in life is to start the first pre-army academy for women's leadership, the only one back then in Israel who's going to be targeted for girls from the socio-economical background. And that was my dream. Every door I knocked on to make this dream a reality was shut in my face, and every door slammed in my face became a window I actually climbed into. And a few years later, actually 2.5 years after this fire became my life passion, Alma Academy for Women's Leadership was actually started. That was after I spent my entire life savings on it, after I moved to live in the middle of the desert, and after I was warned by every person I ever met that I was going to be the biggest failure in the history of Israel. But in the end, in 2013, Alma Pre-Army Academy for Female Leadership was actually a reality. Back then, I was so thrilled to look at the girls who came to our Pre-Army Academy, come to live with us for a few years. They used 6 months of their life to live in the Mechina, in the Pre-Army Academy, to hike all over Israel, to prepare for a meaningful service, to make all their dreams a reality, and to really learn how to be great inspirational women, almost like the women of momentum. But what happens when your dreams come true? Well, I think that for many people, it's a moment of joy. But for people with entrepreneurial spirit, and I will say in the end, who are those people? And it's just the beginning of the journey, because at a certain point in my life, I started to feel a feeling that was familiar. The Mechina was working, it was really changing lives of young Israeli girls, but something started to feel really familiar, and that was the fire. I started asking, how do I bring the fire of Alma Pre-Army Academy not only to girls from the periphery of the country, but to women from all over Israel? And I started dreaming a new dream. I started dreaming of bringing the tools and the options to dream big and to become our own dreams. For women all over the country, but especially in my hometown of Jerusalem. So I asked myself a really important question. I think every person with an entrepreneurial thinking has to ask. I asked myself, who is going to benefit from my success? And that was when I started the Jerusalem Center for Women's Leadership. I got a building in the roughest neighborhood in Jerusalem. I brought together the municipality of Jerusalem, the Jewish Agency for Israel, and Naamat, Israel's biggest organization for women's leadership. And together we created the Lioness network of change makers and brought fire into more hearts and into more lives of women in Jerusalem. Back then, I think my biggest dream was actually becoming a reality. After 3 miscarriages that were absolutely heartbreaking, I was finally pregnant with my first child, Ariel Hana. And when I came back from the hospital, after bringing my daughter to life, I felt that there is a new fire in my heart. And I started to ask myself, could my dreams be big enough to become my own business, to become my own shlichut, my own mission in life? Or should my dreams drive other people's missions and other big, amazing organizations' missions? And that was when I made my leap. I started a new business called Leap, and a new business as a lecturer for myself. I became my own boss. That was a big dream that came true. And I decided to meet as many women possible. I wanted to feel their energy. I wanted to support big organizations, but as a consultant, and help them create huge projects to change lives of women. Everything was running. It was amazing. It was a big success until COVID-19 knocked on everybody's doors, and everything was canceled. I had zero money in my account to be seen, and I couldn't figure out what was I supposed to do. I was brilliant enough to leave my job in the Jewish Agency for Israel to become an independent business in the worst timing in the world history to make such a move. But then I asked myself again, Michal, what makes you feel alive? Michal, what makes you feel like the fire within your soul, within your heart, returns to burn? And I went into my my office inside my house. I closed the door, and for a few weeks, I devoted myself to the first fire who actually started to burn within me. That was the fire of Safe at Home, the Michal Sela hackathon. Michal Sela was a dear, dear woman who had a baby only 2 months younger than my own baby. And in last October, she was brutally murdered by her husband. Michal was the all-Israeli girl. She was an amazing woman. She was a social worker and a mother who was still breastfeeding her baby when she was murdered. And our hearts, all of our hearts of women here in Israel were absolutely broken when we heard about Michal's death. But what could I do about Michal's death? What could I do to prevent other women to be killed by their spouse, by the people who are supposed to defend them? And I had no idea. But when Corona started, when COVID-19 started, I got a phone call from Michal's family, and they said, Michal, we have an incredible vision, and our vision is to bring startup nation, Israel as a startup nation, to promote domestic violence. They asked me, Michal, would you help us figure out how to bring this dream and make it a reality? So I joined forces with CODA, which is an amazing organization that brings developers into social causes, and with InDev, the biggest senior developers community in Israel. And together we created the Michal Sela Hackathon. So right here, without leaving my room, without even standing almost from this chair, we worked for 5 weeks. It was only 2.5 months ago, and we brought together 1,800 partners and developers, more than 200 volunteers. The majority of them were women, and created dozens of life-saving technological solutions in order to save the next woman. We brought together the government, we brought together social organizations, and the high-tech industry of Israel. And I'm so proud to say that I really think that Michal's vision and that Michal's family's vision came to life as we brought Startup Nation to one of the darkest issues we face as a society. But when the hackathon was over, again, I asked myself, what makes you feel alive? What will keep your fire burning? And let's be honest, what will also keep your bank account alive? And I said to myself, you know what? If I have something to say and people are happy to hear it, why do I need to stand on the stage? I could just bring new women into my lives from this room that I haven't left for so many weeks. So I started the Sisterhood Project. It's like a women's tribe. I brought women from Israel and from all over the world. Many of them are momentum women who I love dearly, to study about feminism with me. So together we sit, and it's like we light our tribe's fire. We light it in our hearts. We don't light it in our offices at home, but we do light it in our hearts. And we tell the stories of women, the women who really changed history. We tell the stories of ourselves. We ask ourselves what kind of mothers we want to become, what kind of businesswoman we want to become, what kind of wives we want to become, what are our dreams, our hopes, and our inspirations to change the world. So when I thought about our talk today, our Momentum Boost talk today, I asked myself, what is your value? What can you bring into the women of Momentum's hearts? What can you give them from your own private experience? And my answer was that I wanted to share the 5 questions I always ask myself when I try to figure out what's the next step in life. And these 5 questions are entrepreneurial questions. I think they're pretty basic, but they can really change your life when you start feeling that there's a change that you want to create in the world. My motto, as some of you know, is Mahatma Gandhi's line, be the change you want to see in the world. And when I ask myself, Michal, what is the change you want to see in the world? What does it mean for you to be that change? I ask these 5 questions. So the first question will be, what is the fire? What makes you feel alive? What makes you feel angry? What keeps you up at night? And I always say that I think that when we see a woman with a fire burning within her soul, in so many cases, we're so afraid of that fire. And I think that in so many cases, we're afraid of understanding how big and powerful we really are. And that strength and that power comes from our inner fire. And the second thing I want to say is that that fire could be a huge fire and it can only be a small flame. But the fire that you feel within you that tells you that you have a mission, that tells you that there is something bigger than yourself that has to happen in the world, I believe that that's God's way to knock on your door and tell you, honey, it's time for you to wake up because there's a mission waiting for you. So my first question is, what is that fire? And my second question is, what kind of need does this fire serve? So there's the fire coming from within us, from bottom up, and then there's the need in the world. So if this fire burns within you, but it doesn't really meet a need in the world, I'm not sure you need to quit your job, put your entire life savings, and run to change the world. But if this fire actually meets a need. When I started Alma, I understood that there are young women in Israel who don't get the opportunity to dream. I understood that if I could meet these girls before they're drafted to the Israeli army and transform their life's mission and give them more strength and more confidence, then I can change their entire life trajectory. When I moved the Mechinah to Jerusalem and started the Jerusalem Center for Women's Leadership, I understood that these needs to become part of a feminine tribe and these needs to listen to your dreams and try to chase them and follow them, it's not only the needs of the young girls in the Pre-Army Academy, it's the needs of so many women around me, entrepreneurs and activists just like me. When I started the Michal Hackathon, I understood that my fire grew. And when my fire grew, I understood that there's a bigger need for me to answer in the world. The third question out of 5 is, what are your strengths? What are you especially good at? And again, what makes you feel alive? As I said, I was an attorney. I'm going to talk about it in the 4th question. What are your strengths? What are you really good at? And I feel that as women, in so many cases, we're so humble to ask ourselves, what are my strengths? What am I amazing at? What are my gifts? And in many cases, I tell women that being so humble and saying, these are my gifts, but I don't want to use them because I don't want to show off, because I don't want to be too big, because I don't want to be too bossy. It's a slap in the face to the creation that brought you these tools, that brought you these gifts, that brought you these strengths. These strengths are yours in order for you to use them. If you speak really well, be a speaker. If you write really, really well, be a writer. If you cook really well, be a mother. No, I'm just kidding. If you cook really well, be a chef. Just ask yourself, what am I really good at? And use these abilities in order to make this fire meet the need. The 4th question is, of course, what are your weaknesses? As I said, I was an attorney by profession, and every minute I spent in the office made me feel like I don't want to live for 5 more minutes. It was a nightmare for me to look at all the small details, to sit in front of a computer, to be quiet, not to create anything of my own. So I always say, what is the fire? What is the need? How can your strengths work for you in order to make this fire meet the need and be the change you want to see in the world? And what can you do that doesn't make your weaknesses too too powerful. I mean, where can your weaknesses not harm you too much? Today, I don't really deal with any law issues for everybody's happiness, and I just keep away from my weaknesses, from the places that I know that makes me feel so tired and so out of energy. I try to find where and what makes me feel happy and alive. And the fifth question, we ask about the fire, we ask about the need, we ask about the strengths and the weaknesses. The fifth question is the price question. What is the price you are willing to pay? When I started Alma, I had no money in my bank account because I put everything, all my life savings, to make Alma a reality. That was a price I was willing to pay. But when I started losing my pregnancies, one miscarriage after another and after another, I felt that that price was not a price I was willing to pay anymore. And therefore, I decided to move the Mechina from down south where it was to Jerusalem, where my husband and I lived. So I think that in so many cases, we imagine that in order to become a woman that has a mission in life, we have to sacrifice everything. And I think that our mission is to become big, but not to sacrifice, but to feel extremely alive. And of course, the last quote I want to finish with is the one I always tell in Momentum Talks in Israel that I hope that will come back to soon to our lives. And that's my favorite quote in the world, what Mahatma Gandhi said: be the change you want to see in the world. How do you become that change you want to see in the world? By asking yourself, what is my fire? What need does it meet? How will my strength be part of that change I want to see in the world? How can my weaknesses not interrupt too much? And what prices am I willing to pay? And I'm going to finish by saying that I think that the Jewish story and the Zionist story is always the same story. It's the story of a person that feels a fire burning within their soul and make it in a reality in order to repair the world, in order to create tikkun olam. Herzl had a fire who told him, dream big and create a vision. And that's why we had a vision to create the country of Israel. David Ben-Gurion had a fire to take Herzl's vision and make it a reality. So now we really have the country of Israel. And each and every one of you has a fire burning within her soul. What is your fire? And what kind of change you're going to be in the world? And now I'm especially thrilled and happy to call Adrian, the Momentum Diva, the Momentum Mother, the Momentum amazing woman, to ask me questions. And of course, you're absolutely welcome to ask me anything you want to know. Adrian, I'm so happy to see you. I wish I could hug you.
I'm so happy to see you, and I'm going to tell everybody who's watching in Momentum Land, this woman is not green. It's not easy being green. Honestly, it's such a fascinating thing. Okay, green aside, I was thinking about something as you were speaking. I want you to comment on it. It's been my experience, and perhaps less now than it used to be, that when a woman has a fire, she's often encouraged to extinguish it. It's as though that fire is somehow threatening to other people. So you said that which makes us angry is often a clue to what we should be doing. What do you do about people trying to extinguish your flame and telling you not to be so angry? How do you push back at that? How did you do it?
So there's a story I always like to tell, and now that I'm green, I think it's even a better story. There's a story about the frogs, okay? The frogs who they're leaping, and it's like the frogs marathon, and everybody on the sides, all the animals in the forest are yelling, don't do it, it's too hard, it's too hard. And all the frogs are coming out of the marathon because it's too hard, and everybody's telling them it's too hard. And then there's the last frog, and the last frog goes through and wins the marathon, and he gets to the finishing line, and everybody tells him, stop, it's the finishing line. But the frog keeps sleeping because the frog is deaf. So if I'm green, I want you to look at me and think of the frog. Sometimes you just need to be that deaf frog who just doesn't listen. And I think that in many cases, people are trying to stop you from their fears.
Yes.
Not because of anything else. And they're not trying to be mean to you. I mean, they do care about you. I don't think they're always aware of the fact that they're doing it because they're afraid of how big your vision can really be and how amazing that reality could really become.
Well, you're clearly a testament to that energy of not being pushed down, of that deaf frog. That will stay in my mind forever. Okay, another question. Can you tell us information about how to apply for Alma? One of the women says she has a daughter finishing school, and it'd be great for her to go to Alma before the army. They live in Israel.
Amazing. So just Google it, Mechinat Alma in Hebrew, or and I can send you the links, but www.alma.com. Just go to our website, be friends on Facebook, do the right thing, send your daughter to Alma, and the new year is just about to start really, really soon. So yeah, I think it's a life-changing experience, absolutely.
Where did the name Alma come from, actually?
So later on, I understood that Alma in Spanish means soul. And I didn't know that, but I think that it's a perfect match because Alma is a place for your soul to really grow. But that's not the reason. The reason is Alma is named after Chavat Alamot. Alma in Hebrew is maiden. And 100 years ago, there was an amazing woman called Hannah, and she was Hannah Meisel. She started the Maiden's Farm, Chavat Alamot, in order to bring those women pioneers who came to create Israel out of the kitchen and into the fields. She said, when we're going to have strong women, we will have the country of Israel. And when I heard about Hannah Meisel's vision, I said, she's my hero. And I'm going to call Alma after Chavat Alamot. So wow. Alma, maiden, after the Maiden's Farm. Yes.
Oh my! You know what? We all have to activate our inner Chanaha or our inner Alma. So who's running Alma now? What do you need to do to guarantee it's a continued success? Who's running it now?
That's a good question. First of all, to let go of your baby. Oh my God, that's horrible.
For sure.
And anybody who will tell you different, I'm not sure they're telling the truth. I felt like it was absolutely the right time to move on. I'm still in the picture. I still work with a new director, but it's also terrifying. So now a new director started actually a few weeks ago. Her name is Tali Gildin, and she's an incredible, inspirational woman. And I can't wait to see the next steps that she's going to bring Alma to. So I ran Alma for 6 years, and I think that now it's time for the new spirit to rise.
One more question. You know, I remember hearing this phrase years ago, that we don't so much grow up as we give up, right? And so there's something that keeps you young when you don't grow up and when you let your fire be fuel for you. Who was or is one of your mentors other than Hannah?
I think there are so many mentors, and I think all of my mentors were women. And I want to say that we're always so afraid of other women because I think that we're being taught to think that if there's another woman around me and if she's a powerful woman, she's going to take something that belongs to me. I need to compete with her. But it's the other way around. For sure. And I think that in the DNA of everything I did, Alma and the Lioness Changer Network and Michal Hackathon and the Sisterhood. It's always the same DNA of sisterhood, of believing that if you surround yourself with inspirational women, you will always grow and you will always stay young. And the first mentor that comes up to my mind is Miki Dahav. She's the CEO of the Spirit of Israel. And she was the one who actually brought me to the Jewish Agency for Israel, who took Alma under its wings and made it a reality. I really knocked on the door of the Jewish Agency 6 months before the Mechina, the Pre-Army Academy, was supposed to start, with 22 girls who were signed in and 50,000 shekels in our account. We needed 2 million, and we needed to start 6 months later. And the Jewish Agency really changed my life when they said I do. And Miki was the one who made that door open. And ever since, she always opens every door for me.
Here's to Mickey then for opening the first door that you've allowed us to walk through today. I want to thank you so much, Michal. You're sharing your time with us and your thoughts and everything you brought to us today.